I want to call the special call regular council meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. We'll open our normal fashion with prayer and pledge. If Mr. Woods could lead us in our prayer, we'll follow with a pledge.
Our Father in heaven, again, we thank you now for all of your many blessings. We just thank you, oh God, for allowing us to be able to live to see this day. Thank you, God, for blessing us with seen and unseen blessing. And God, right now, we ask that you would just let your angel come into the building and give us a peace of mind as we make the decision on tonight. We pray, oh God, what it be said, what be done, it be pleasing in your holy sight. God, we just pray for those that are sick. We pray for those that are bereaved, and we pray for those that are less fortunate. Bless our mayor, bless our council, bless all of our department here. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Face the flag with me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if you would call the roll, Ms. Clerk.
Mr. Brown? Here. Mr. Golden? Here. Mr. Lau? Here. Mr. McKinney? Here. Ms. Miller? Here. Ms. Ray? Here. Mr. Williams? Here. Mr. Woods? Here.
All right, thank you, ma'am. We'll open the floor up now if there's anyone who'd like to have public comments to address the council on the business that we have on the council meeting tonight. You can speak on that subject for 3 minutes. So if anybody would like to come, this will be your opportunity to speak. All right, if not, we'll move on to new business. What we have, the reason for this call meeting, Ms. Caroline reached out to me and asked if I would call a special call meeting to address the City of Bolivar Charter, Article 3, Section 310, political activity prohibited. You have a copy of that section of the charter and it should be on your desk in front of you. And if you will look down at the last section where it says Section 310, I'm gonna go in the middle of that paragraph. Well, I just read the whole thing. That no officer or employee of the city, other than the mayor, council member, shall continue the employment of the city after becoming a candidate for nomination or election to any city office. This section here, particularly, any member of the council of the city of Bolivar that desires to run for the office of mayor shall resign their position on said council prior to qualifying for the mayor's office unless such council member's term expires on the first day of July following the election. That's our current charter right now, and I had a couple asks when this was put in place. We found it in the minutes of the March council meeting. You have the minutes from the March 26 council meeting, March 26, 1996 council meeting where that was put in place. And if you go to the back of the third page, towards the bottom where it says Section 15, Chapter 142 of the Private Acts of 1953 as amended, is further amended in Article 3, Section 310 by deleting the first sentence in its entirety and substituting it instead of the following. That's those words there, or that was put into the charter in 1996. So what I'll do at this time, I'll turn it over to the attorney and let him address the council. There's been a lot of questions and all that, so I'll excuse myself from the conversation and turn it over to him.
I'm gonna stand up here if that's better. That way I can see everybody. Does that help? Mr. Mayor and Council, y'all have presented me as the city attorney with a very unique, and I say unique, legal quandary. And I say that in the sense that when this first came up, I had no idea how detail-oriented this was. It seems fairly simplistic, but on the flip side, it's not. I represent, as you know, the city, so I represent essentially all of y'all. So I'm gonna give you kind of the lay of the land and then kind of what I see as the pluses and minuses, if you will. And then ultimately, you all have to make a decision if you decide to make a decision based upon what I can tell you. All right. So without getting into all the legal jargon, which I've learned a lot more about this over the past 3 or 4 days than I can recall to ever spend this much time in looking at a charter. But essentially what we're dealing with in non-legal terms is what's called a resign to run charter, meaning there's a provision in the city charter that says if you want to run for a certain thing, you have to resign from a certain thing. I had never heard of this until last Wednesday or Thursday. However, when you research it further, there are a numerous amount of cities that have this in Tennessee. Now, Bolivar is what's called a private act city, meaning it was set up prior, I believe, 1953, where basically the charter and the city operates pursuant to a private act adopted by the Tennessee legislature. There's a little over 200 cities that operate that way. If you're a newer city, they have to follow a uniform set. But this particular provision is not unique. And in fact, if you looked at the Daily Memphian over the weekend, Bartlett, Tennessee is going through this same process right now. Although they don't have an election coming up, they're addressing it by amending their charter now for the next mayoral race coming up after that. And if you look further, there are numerous cities. Memphis has one, which that candidly surprised me if you follow Memphis election politics at all. But be that as it may, what we've got in the charter, and the charter itself, once it becomes adopted by the legislature, is the law, meaning that is the law of your city that has to be followed by the city. And I think when you look at that particular section, I don't think you can interpret that any other way in terms of what it says. Now I say but, and this is where it gets even more interesting and puts each and every one of you that have to decide something, if you decide to decide anything, in a quagmire. In doing my research on this, I came across Tennessee Code Section 7-51-1501, which is a state law code that protects the rights of employees, including of municipalities, to participate in political activity. Meaning, and I'm greatly paraphrasing, that it allows any elected official, city employee, the same rights as other citizens, basically to run for office. There are exceptions to that. Obviously, if you're an 8 to 5 city employee, you cannot campaign or conduct political activity while you're working, for obvious reasons. Now, what's interesting about that particular code section is not a single court in the state of Tennessee has interpreted it or applied it one way or the other. Similarly with the charter provision. There's not a single case in the entire state of Tennessee in the history of jurisprudence that I could find interpreting that charter one way or the other. It seems pretty straightforward, but it begs more questions of, all right, let's say you don't do that. Who enforces it? How is it enforced? And there is no answer to that I could find. So that being the case, you can look at the charter, and one of the things, and I think I've talked to at least half of you all here over the past couple of days, if you look at section 5.02, which is on the last page of the main part of the charter, penalties, section 5.03, it says that the violation of any provisions of this act for which a penalty is not specified provided herein is hereby declared to be a misdemeanor and shall be punished by a fine of not more than $50. Meaning, if you violate the charter, which is the law of the city, you are committing a criminal act. Now again, it gets back to, well, is that enforceable? Who enforces it? How is it enforced? And there's literally no answer to that. So where does that leave you all? In my opinion, and this is my opinion on behalf of the city, I don't think you could vote legally, or at least without subjecting yourself as a city to liability, to vote to essentially ignore the city charter. I don't. I think if you did that, you would be subjecting the city and potentially yourself to something that you may not want to get involved in. Say you could have a citizen come back and say, well, you violated your own charter as an elected official, knowing exactly what it says. That being said, the flip side of it, and I think I've talked to a couple of you about this too, I don't think you could enforce that particular provision of the charter. Meaning, I think it would be a violation of equal protection, if not a violation of that Tennessee Code section, which says every citizen, every council member should be entitled to the same equal protection of the law. So how do you reconcile that? I think from a practical standpoint, until it's amended or changed, that is the law. Whether you knew about it, whether it's enforceable or not, that is still the law. It's kind of like there are unconstitutional laws or laws that are determined to be unconstitutional all the time. But that would be after the fact. That would be after a judge or the legislature says, hey, we're either going to change it, the legislature says we're going to change it, or a judge would declare it to be unenforceable, void, unconstitutional, violation of due process, violation in particular of equal protection. Because basically, as I understand it, there's going to be half of you could potentially run for mayor that would be subject to this, and the other half would be not. In my legal opinion, I think that is not equal protection under the law. But that doesn't change the fact that the law says what it says right now. So my recommendation, I'm open to any questions that you've got. Hopefully I've explained that as simply as I can, is it's up to you. I need to know basically two things. And I say this in terms of, as the city attorney, what, if anything, do you want to do? And two, equally important, we've been getting calls, and I think I've shared this with the ones I've talked to from the Election Commission. They run a response from the city through me as to what you want me to tell them, the Election Commission. And that is a decision y'all get to make, and why you get to pay the big bucks to sit up here and make this decision.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
When it comes to city charter, state law, U.S. Constitution, which one of those carries most weight?
Well, obviously, in my opinion, the U.S. Constitution. However, the charter basically is considered, since it's a private act city, state law. So basically, if you violate the charter, you're violating state law. Now, the question being, until it's determined to be constitutional or not, or provide equal protection or not, it still would be a violation. Now, obviously, if it's ultimately determined to be a violation, then it would void that particular provision of the charter. But as of now, that has not been determined either here in Bolivar or anywhere else in the state that has them. I mean, as best I can tell, and this may help you somewhat, some of the other cities that have this, and I've talked to a city attorney or two, both Friday and today, that have this particular provision and had this come up, and basically the city has taken no position. Obviously the charter says what it says, but I don't think, and certainly I would absolutely not recommend that the city council vote in favor of ignoring or trying to circumvent the city charter, because in my opinion that would be a violation of state law. However, you could choose to do nothing, and then it would be up to the Election Commission, in my opinion, to decide what, if anything, they want to do. Because really, until something actually happens, the claim of constitutionality, equal protection isn't ripe until, let's say, hypothetically, somebody was not put on the ballot or was put on the ballot. And you could have challenges both ways. Say you had somebody on the ballot that somebody believes shouldn't be on the ballot. You could have a citizen file a lawsuit to have them disqualified, and potentially that could occur before, during, or even after the election. Flip side, you could have somebody file it the other way, saying I want to be on because this is not fair, because it basically discriminates half the commissioners against the other half of the commissioners.
Right, because what I don't know if everybody understands this. So those of us who are not on the election cycle that's coming up now with the mayor, would have to resign in order to run.
Correct.
But the other half of
As written, yes.
Yes, but the other half of the council, the other four, could hold their seat, run for reelection, and as the precedent that Brenda Woods did, was at 2009, you could run for both your seat and the mayor. So half of us have that as an opportunity, and the other half of us would have to give up our seat. So in a way, that gives an unfair advantage to the incumbent mayor, because they really have eliminated kind of half of their really viable opponents, because not a lot of people would be deterred from running because they know that they would have to risk losing their seat. So that's where it becomes the unconstitutionality of it, in my opinion. And so from what I've been advised, a person's First Amendment and 14th Amendment rights would be violated by not having the opportunity to pursue the same opportunities that everybody else would. So if, hypothetically, someone was not allowed to run, then they would have grounds to sue the city.
Well, I think they would, but more likely you would sue the election commission. Well, I guess strike that. It would depend upon who made the decision.
Which is why the buck keeps getting passed around.
Correct.
No one wants to make the decision. So,
It would be whoever made the decision to disqualify somebody from the ballot, and that person was ultimately disqualified from the ballot, would be who would be sued, if that makes sense. So if y'all vote to say disqualify somebody from being on the ballot, the city could potentially be sued for that. If you vote to place somebody on the ballot, potentially you could get sued for that too by somebody else saying, well, you're violating the city charter. It's a catch-22 in terms of you all.
and no one has challenged this before now. This was in 1996, so no one from this
I'm not talking
election
just
cycle-
Bolivar, I'm talking anywhere
No, I'm
in the
just
state.
asking. So no one, is anyone, no one's ever tried to run that just happened to be on, or maybe they were discouraged. Once they realized that they would have to resign, they let it go, and no one has ever fought it.
Well, it begs the question, if that person didn't resign, who would do something about it? And I don't know the answer to that because it's never been done. I did reach out, and I think I told both of y'all today this, to the county attorney, who presumably would be representing the Hardeman County Election Commission, and invited him to attend this evening, because I said this ultimately could come back on your desk, and quite frankly, not mine, or at least that would be my recommendation. And he's like, well, we're going to wait and see what happens first. Like, well, I mean, at some point, in my legal opinion, I don't think we should be giving legal opinions to the Hardeman County Election Commission. Because one, that is their job, not the city of Bolivar's job to determine who is qualified to be on a ballot or not. And I say this in conversations with other city attorneys for similar instances that have come up, in particular, say in Shelby County, where you had residency charter requirements, and ultimately that ended up in court with the Shelby County Election Commission. When the sheriff was seeking to run for city mayor, they had a city residency requirement that was ultimately determined by a judge to be improper, and they were ordered to be put back on the ballot. And I would imagine, from a practical standpoint, if somebody was excluded, I think those same arguments would be made to this, because I don't understand, you know, and I would have loved to have been here in 1995, 6, whenever that was. What was the purpose and intent of this at the time? Because from a legal standpoint, it doesn't make sense.
I would guess to sabotage somebody's political ambitions.
Well,
That's just a guess.
Well, from what I saw from some other jurisdictions that have passed this, the rationale that's been given is it prevents city employees from neglecting their job, their current job, while pursuing another one. I can kind of see how, but I think that would be more appropriate if you had, like, say, a rank and file city employee that was 8 to 5, and they spend, you know, they're drawing a paycheck in the utility department, water department, whatever, and they're out campaigning all day.
Oh, yeah.
That would
That
make
could
more
come up.
sense than commissioners. It also would make more sense of if you put this in there and it applied to all commissioners, not just the ones up for election in the off cycle or current cycle, depending upon what cycle you're looking at. But
What's that TCA code?
7-51-1501.
So basically what you're saying is that we have a state law that says that it protects the right to run, but you also have a city charter which is also equal to state law that contradict each other.
Well, it's even broader than that. It basically protects the rights of employees to participate in political activities, giving them the same rights as other citizens. And I think that's broader even. So, I mean, like I said,
It's directive.
from my legal standpoint, and again, this is just my opinion because no court has ever decided it and they would be the ones that would have to decide it. I don't think it could be enforced because I think it would be an equal protection argument and directly contrary to that statute, but nobody's argued it yet. And I would hate to see the city of Bolivar, because I represent all of you, get in the middle of some kind of fight like that.
So basically what you're saying is if we do nothing, we make no action, then it would go on and nothing would happen. She would be put on the ballot.
That would not be our call.
Well, it would be off of us is what I'm saying. It would be on the election
Yeah.
commission at that point, correct?
In my opinion, it would be.
Did Amber remember that this was on here and she initiated this? Because I do know that a few places.
She contacted me, but
Okay,
she didn't say
I
one
wonder
way or the
if,
other. Yeah.
you know.
She was hard to talk to on the phone. I know
Yes.
she's going through some kind of
Right.
health ailment or something, but
I think
she just said she
some
wanted
places
an
just
opinion letter
ignore it
from
though,
me.
right? Some people have that statute and they don't really do anything about it. Is that correct?
That's my understanding in speaking with some other municipal, and my recommendation always is for any client, cities, private companies, unless you have to get involved in something, why bother? I mean, my position would be, or my recommendation would be, if the city is gonna, in terms of the two issues that I outlined, I would suggest that the city do nothing. Why take a position on something that you don't have to? And two, in terms of a response to the election commission, my response to them, or I would recommend that you authorize me the response to them, would be the charter says what it says. Y'all, this is your call, and leave it at that. But I'm open to whatever. I mean, ultimately, y'all can vote for whatever you want. I just don't want to see the city of Bolivar get involved in something that it candidly doesn't have to be involved in. And obviously, the other long-term option, at some point, if y'all decide you want to change this, let's get that process going if you want to do that, because it is a fairly long process to do, where my understanding is you would first have to have, a 2/3 vote of this body to amend the charter. Then you would have to vote on the charter at least on 2 public meetings. Then it has to go to the state legislature for approval. I mean, you're talking realistically, I don't even think you could get it on the calendar, if you will, at the state legislature for this year. It would be probably next year. And I think y'all were talking about doing some charter changes anyway. I would do these in one fell swoop rather than parcel them off. But ultimately, the decision's up to you. I can just advise and give the pluses and minuses on either side, because I represent all of you. Clear as mud.
You said the violation on this, be a misdemeanor.
That's what it says.
And with a fine of $50,
Right.
what about possible jail time?
It doesn't say that. And what's striking about that is, who would enforce that? And from where and how? And I mean, arguably, the district attorney potentially, I guess, could do that. I guess you're Hardeman County District Attorney, but, it says what it says, but it doesn't really say, what, if anything, would be done about it. Potentially, I looked at cases. There are a couple states in particular, like Arizona, which certainly I wouldn't compare anything in Tennessee with them, but they have charged people with violations of that. These are more federal campaigns and that type of thing. But their laws are much more strict in terms of interpretations, that type of thing. Tennessee is not considered a resigned to run charter state, even though the particular provision is entitled political activity prohibited, which as an attorney, that sounds troubling in and of itself when you word it that way. I think if you're gonna word something like that, it would say certain political activity prohibited. That's not a violation of another law or the Constitution or, I mean, those are more decisions you would have to make if you decide to amend the charter and how you would want to amend it. And again, I don't know if there's anybody still around from 1995. You would think there would have been some logical reason that this was done. But when you look around, Bartlett has it, Memphis has it. There's a lot of cities, Smyrna, I mean, I saw a lot of cities have this. And I don't know if this was just some form that went around and everybody cut and pasted it in their charter. But it still is the law until it's changed or declared to be void or unconstitutional. And my legal advice, when the law says what it says, whether I agree with it or not, I think you still have to follow it.
Mr. Snyder, I hate to
Somebody asked something.
put the mayor, ex-mayor on the spot, but he was actually on the council at that time.
Here,
So was Brenda.
Yeah, he's here. Yeah.
Yeah, Brenda was on it too.
Okay.
in 1995?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just wondering if you could just give us any kind of insight on, not to put you on the
That's-
spot.
82-year-old man, memory not too good. And that was in 96. Let me say, without, and I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but we had problem replacing people when they resigned or whatever. We always have that. And I think this thing, the bottom line, the reason it was done was this 30 days or whatever period was to give us opportunity when we knew that the council member was out running for mayor or whatever. We had another person running for that election for the remainder of that term would be on the thing. Now whether that's facts or not, that's the best way I remember it. I do say this, and this is a fact, and I'm proud of this council right here, every one of you, and tell me I'm wrong, if I'm wrong, every one of you, when you were elected, you got a copy of our charter and our code, and it's updated. Doesn't MTS update that all the time? And it tells specifically what you got to do before you can be eligible to be elected and to be elected, the process, the petition or whatever. But now, here we are, over one day, I understand, the election commission came in because she had not resigned, she couldn't accept her petition. Now, is that right? Am I correct on that?
No, she called me and said that she could accept my petition, but I would have to resign.
Yes.
And then I said, I don't understand how that could be because I know council people have run for mayor in the past. And then that's when it became because of when I came in, and that's when I.
Well, let me tell you this, I feel sure it's not a punitive type thing because it was written in there. I pulled my old charter, which is the same charter, basically, we got some improvements, I still have that thing. But it clearly states in there what you have to do to run. And here we are, you could have resigned the day before and you could have run. So it's not that they're denying you the right to run, it's the fact that you were not schooled in the fact that you need to resign before you can do it. Now, that's the thing, that's basically what it's saying. You've got to resign your position before you run.
Or I can challenge it because I think it's unconstitutional.
You can
Those
change.
are my options, I would think, right?
You can change.
Challenge it.
Well,
Because
you
it's
can always challenge
unconstitutional.
anything,
There you go. Thank
but
you for
the,
your input.
He's done a real good job of explaining, but our charter is a document that's approved, and it all could be, it's one day we're talking about here, and it's not to say that you're gonna win, it's not to say that you're gonna lose. It's the shame that
And everybody here, unless you change it now, we'd be in violation of our own law and the state law since it's been adopted with that. That's the way it looks to me. And this man, the way I read it right here, thinks it would be better to go ahead we're gonna have to sue. You'll have to sue to go through this procedure. You've never had a test case in the state of Tennessee to prove it one way or the other. That means the city's gonna have to stand a lawsuit. You're gonna have to pay for a lawsuit. And all I say is, like I said, each one of you have your personal copy of the charter. And it tells in there the responsibilities and what you gotta do, the council and all, and I hate that you're falling victim of that. But it's up to you. It's up to you when you run, every one of y'all, if you're running in a situation, if you run for the mayor, you'll know that you got to do that to run, whatever the reason for it. I think I've exhausted my three, I didn't
Thank
prepare.
you, Mr. Stevens. Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's my feeling, and I think it's bad. I hate it that she's suffering because of the fact that it's come up.
Because
hate
I
it.
ran at the wrong time?
No, ma'am, I don't think so.
Well, I'm just saying, like, Suzanne Ray, she could run right now.
Well, all
And I
I'm
don't have
telling
that.
you
So
is-
anyway, whoever put that in there, I feel like it's a flawed document. It's a
Well,
flawed
what you need
statute.
to do, and it's like he said, what you're learning from the mission, if we need to change it, if y'all need to change it, we need to do it, you need to bring that
And it
change
takes a
document
year.
in, and then you got to
Okay.
approve it or vote it down, and then do it again in 2 meetings, isn't that right? And that's the way we change it? But, I don't think you see any relief right now without a lawsuit on
Thank you for your advice.
And so far, I've escaped all lawsuits personally.
Mr. Barry,
Good for you.
Mr. Stevens, we appreciate your opinion and all, but you never did answer the question.
You never did what?
Answer the question.
Ask
You
the
went all around the question that was asked.
All right, what-
Why was it put in there? I wanna know, but you were talking
Well,
about
I
off the
was-
wall stuff.
2006, I was on the council, just like y'all. And I can't remember that day, but we did a lot of changes because MTS schooled us on a lot of stuff. It was recommended by somebody higher up. They didn't pick that to cut anybody out. It was changed at the time to do a lot of house cleaning on our charter. And I
Okay.
sat there, I don't know whether they asked a question about it or whatever, but I felt like if I was gonna plan to run for an office, I'd be planning at least 6 months out. And I'd make
That's-
sure that I had I have been short one name that had the wrong address, and I had to run out there and get that on the last day before I could turn in a permit. But they do, to give her credit, she does, she knows what our charter said.
Yeah. But you never did
Thank
answer the
y'all
question,
for
so I
everything that
appreciate
you
it.
do.
No.
I'm not up here.
Maybe
to
Brenda
Can we
might
have,
know.
can we ask Ms. Woods, cause
Maybe
I
she
appreciate you answering that, but we never did get an answer, so next one.
Absolutely. I'm like Cleopatra when she went to Anthony's bedroom. I didn't come here to talk, but if you ask a question, I'm going to tell you. That charter was changed because of me. That particular, they didn't want me to run. I did run as a council member and mayor. And I don't want to tell y'all what I told Amber because it's not nice. But my thing is, you all allow Ms. Moore to run the council business. She's supposed to be the election commissioner, and she gets in the business of doing what she is not being paid for. She is paid to run the election. The city business should be the city business. And you are absolutely right. I agree with you, word for word, Counselor. They should leave that alone and take it up in the legislature, if it's next year, year after. But to answer your question, Ms. McKinney, it was changed because of me. They always change things because of me, because they scared. And if you're running for election, run. Let's see who wins. Any questions? That's why it was changed, because of me.
Mr. City Attorney, you saying that, leave it alone, if we leave it alone tonight, it goes back to the election commission. Is that correct?
Well,
Then it's up to the election commission.
I would suggest two things. One, if you're gonna do something tonight, which that's issue one, you either vote to do nothing or leave it up to the election commission or vote to begin the process of changing the charter. That could be one. And then two, the response to the election commission is something to the effect of, the charter says what it says, we disagree with it, we're in the process of changing it, but the ultimate decision is yours as the election commission, not ours. That way it takes the city out of that fight, if you will, because ultimately, and I'll just put it out there, if they choose to leave you off the ballot, your next option would be that, to file some type of lawsuit to have you put on the ballot. But until a judge would do that, the ultimate decision would be up to the election commission. But it may be a non-issue if they put you on the ballot. I don't know. Have they said what they're gonna do one way or the other yet?
Well, that would be a Julian question, probably.
No, she hadn't said it to me.
Because as
They
I
probably
understand
not
it,
gonna
she
do
keeps
nothing
wanting
city attorney.
something from me, and
They probably take off, so we
Yeah.
can go and answer that
I
question
keep
for you.
telling her, I was like, I'm not sure where that falls under the duties of the city to interpret whether or not somebody should be on an election that's managed by the county. To me, that's what I call their problem.
Well, you know, the problem I have with this was back in '96. The problem I have with this is that Mr. Golden, Miss Suzanne, Mr. Tommy, and Mr. Brown can run now as mayor and still stay on.
Correct. As it's written.
But we, when I'm speaking of we, Mr. Lyles, me, Ms. Miller, and Mr. William, we're gonna get penalized. Because we're not in that cycle,
Essentially.
voting cycle. Yes, we're getting penalized for this.
Yeah.
That is not fair, and I know any federal court would say that's not fair. You're either gonna have to give us all or none at all, period. And so I have a serious, and I talked to the mayor, and he agreed with me.
I think
He agreed
everybody's
with
in
me.
agreement with it. I agree with you
Ms.
from a legal
Woods,
standpoint.
she ran, didn't have to get off. And didn't know that the mayor ran when he was city council, didn't get off. So now you gonna talk about penalizing somebody else because we're not on the site? Oh no, oh Lord, no, that ain't gonna work.
And I agree
know.
with you, but I think it's actually better than that. People do it all the time. I think Chris can speak to this. I live in Fayette County, but in Memphis, city council members run for mayor all the time. And they have the same thing in their charter. It's just kind of there. I don't understand why. I mean, as an attorney, I don't understand why there's this disparity between half of the council members. What difference should it make if you're in the cycle? I agree with you. It should be all or nothing. And I don't understand what the thought process was from that, but that's neither here nor there and doesn't change the law as it currently is written right now.
So now you're saying that about like state law, city, federal,
Well,
when a
because
law is made, usually somebody done did something, and they gonna go in and change something, make a law of that.
but why would it be in
So-
so many cities? That's what's strange about it. That's
I'm not worried
Yeah,
about the city. I live in Bolivar.
I hear you.
I represent the city of Bolivar.
Yeah.
I don't care about the other cities in town.
But it makes no
But right
sense in
now,
any other
it really
place.
don't
either.
make my thing is, it don't make sense that all of us is not on the same page. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're not on the same page, and we need to get on the same page. If Miss Amber didn't make that decision, I think we need to go ahead and leave her name on there. I mean, if we get sued, what's gonna stop? We getting sued for anything. You get sued for anything. I be up at courthouse every day, sued for something, but don't necessarily mean that they're gonna win. You know, win or lose. So I don't have a problem with going to court, cause I go every day anyway. So I'm up there anyway.
I'm right there with you.
You know, I'm up there anyway.
Brown had something.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking that we need
Coach
to do.
Brown.
With the proposal that failed to pass, making the election on even years, would that have helped the whole councilman out to be able to run?
I hadn't thought
I
about
mean,
that.
With it being split like this?
I'm trying to do
if
the
they had
math on
voted
that.
For it to be on even years?
No,
Does
because
that
we would
affect
still be
anything?
doing
Still,
half and
yes,
half.
Yeah, it still
Yeah.
be half and half. If I'm not running with the mayor, just like I am now, it's not gonna work.
Okay.
So it really don't matter on that one, that end. No, we still gonna have the same problem unless you put down that anybody can run for mayor.
Or you could just delete that whole
I'll delete it. That's
sentence
correct.
from the
Yes,
charter
yes.
and be done with it.
Most likely delete it.
I mean, that would be the simplest route rather than, but that's a process. All I can tell you is, and I agree with you, I think the law as written is unfair. I don't think it's enforceable. I don't think a judge would uphold it. But at the same time, it still is the law right now, and
The only way
Yeah.
laws change is when they get challenged.
correct.
Nothing happens unless there has, so if we have to be the city, the municipality that challenges this, and we take it to the state, and we take it to the or wherever it goes, I don't have a problem with that, because right is right. And whether you like me on this council, or you support me, or you think I should run or not, what is right and what is fair is clear. And if it were Mr. Williams running, I would be just as upset, or Mr. McKinney, who's been on this council longer than anyone else up here. He shouldn't have to give up his seat if he decided to run for mayor.
Not gonna give it up.
So, as a council, if we don't stand for what is right and what is fair for one another, then how are we expected to support what is right and fair for everybody else in this state, just because it's on a piece of paper? Pieces of paper get changed all the time, and that's on us. They don't get to change it. They get to vote us in and let the sausage get made. So I'm challenging the council to stand up and say, this isn't right. It may never get changed. It's been like this 30 years almost. If this is gonna be the time to change it, let's change it now. Not 4 years from now, because this doesn't affect what's happening right now, and the time to act is right now. Now, we could say we're gonna do this, and knowing that we are changing it, the process to change it is starting. But that does not help the fact that I deserve to be on that ballot, because I am on this council. I'm a citizen of Bolivar, like you said. The Tennessee Code says I'm a citizen, before I'm on a council person, I'm a citizen of Bolivar, and I have the right to run.
These are the decisions you gotta make. I serve at your pleasure, and you just tell me what you wanna do.
I move that we advise the Election Commission that I will be on the ballot, and we are in the process of taking that unconstitutional provision out of our charter, and period. So if anybody wants to second it, we can vote, and we can go on from there. We don't have to be here all night.
No, I second, so.
Got a motion and a second. Any other questions? All right, call the roll, Ms. Clerk. Everybody understand the motion?
Yeah,
All right, she's, correct me if I'm wrong, she's saying we advise Ms. Amber to put her on the ballot and all the other stuff she said, but basically, put her on the ballot and allow her to run. That's what she's,
that's it, yes.
if you vote yes, you're saying yes to
Yes,
putting her
her.
on the ballot.
Okay, that's what I think.
Did y'all, Mr. Woods, you had a question?
Yeah, my question is, okay, and I've been hearing both sides of it tonight, okay? The violation, why this was not done, why this was done, okay? Why tonight, out of all of the meetings we done had, this come up here?
The deadline is Thursday. He has to send something in writing to Amber by Thursday. That's the deadline, for it all be figured out, whether I'm on the ballot, I'm not on the ballot.
Although I'm not,
That's why.
I'm not candidly sure, because she didn't say, well, what if I don't respond? I mean, what is she gonna do? But I don't know. But, yeah, because, I mean, at the end of the
I
day,
asked her that too. She said she has to have something from you in writing. Now, but that's between you and her, or the county
Yeah.
attorney.
I mean, like I said, I serve at your pleasure, and you are my client collectively, so.
I got a question. Did you say
Yeah.
it had to take, 30 days or something had to go off and come back? It could be changed that quick? Or?
Oh, no, the charter absolutely could not be changed.
so
I don't
therefore-
think you could change it this year, even if you
Okay,
wanted
if
to.
we done that, could we be violating or sued at $50 or puts your name against someone? or whatever?
Potentially, the way it's written, yes. The question is, who would do it? How would it be enforced? I don't know. I couldn't find a single case, because in essence, what you're proposing is, we believe the charter says what it says, but we're gonna violate the charter because we believe the charter is unconstitutional. So the question is, would somebody do something about that? And anybody that voted in favor of that, would they be violating the charter by voting in favor of it, assuming hypothetically it was held to be constitutional? And, you know, judges do strange things sometimes. In my opinion, I do think it's unconstitutional. I think it's a violation of equal protection. But that doesn't mean a judge could say, it's fine, and we're gonna enforce it as is.
So yes means we're going against the charter, no means we're going with the charter. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yep.
I just had one thing, just in the course of the conversation, did we say that people have run on this before here? Without?
That I
resigning?
don't know. That was
They
before my
know
time.
when Ms. Woods ran, she ran for both. Her
She
seat
ran
on
for both at
council
the same
was she
time, so
ran-
nobody's run as a
Far as we
councilman
can see, Ms.
that
Caroline
wasn't
the first
up
one.
for election.
Like
Okay.
I said, some people probably would have, but this statute probably deterred them. And then they're like, oh, it's gonna take a year to change it. Oh, well, I won't do it. Then 4 years later, so it's fine. Let's do it. Just vote, whatever people decide, because then everybody has to then make their decisions on what they're gonna do going forward.
All right, any other questions?
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
so as a law enforcement officer, I got a few questions. So, well, I know we have a motion and a second. So, say we do nothing at all. Has Amber said whether she's going to include her or exclude her from the ballot?
No.
Or has she said?
She said I need a response from you by Thursday.
But why is it our job to tell
That's-
her what?
Well, that was kind of my thought of, well, what are you gonna do if I don't?
My,
Because as I understand it, you filed, is it a filed petition?
Yes.
because, Mr. Schneider, I completely agree, and I think, it's the census of the board from what I'm hearing from everyone that we believe it's unconstitutional. But if we don't have to get involved in litigation, lawsuits, and all this other stuff, I don't understand why it's being put on us, and we're being told that we're going to have a misdemeanor. Well, you got some law enforcement officers up here.
I
that,
thought the misdemeanor would be for the person that didn't resign. I didn't know it was for.
Well, the way you read it, and let me read it to you again, maybe this will help clear it up.
Don't do anything. No, just sit up here. Don't do nothing. I'll do what I got to do.
It says, section 5.03, that the violation of any provision of this act for which a penalty is not specified provided herein, which there is no penalty specified, is hereby declared to be a misdemeanor and shall be punished by a fine of not more than $50. Does that mean the people that voted to violate the act? Does that mean the person that actually is violating the act? That's not clear either. And that,
See, that's what I'm saying. And that means
it's a terrible,
sequential, 'cause it's all.
and who enforces that? How is it enforced? It's completely vague. But at the same time, as your attorney, I do want to advise you, if you're voting in favor of that, you are voting in favor as a city council member of violating the city's charter. And I can't recommend you do that as an attorney for the city. Y'all can do what you want. Do I think it's enforceable? No. But at the same time, you got to understand on the front end, it would be a violation of the law, in my opinion, to violate the city charter by voting in favor of something that is violating the city charter as written, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. Does that make sense?
So who would it be up to whether or not we're going, who enforces this? Who would that be up to? Like, is that gonna be up to the district attorney's office is
Arguably, it could be the state legislature.
Right,
They
well,
could potentially try to revoke the charter if you're not gonna follow it. I mean, you know, you're in uncharted territory, literally. And I don't mean that as a quib saying uncharted, but there is, I'm not aware of any case that's interpreted any of these. I'm not aware of any city that has ever voted to violate their own charter. There is no cases out there at all.
So we could just vote to say, don't do anything, don't send her anything, just, no, don't communicate. I mean, is that,
That would be my recommendation.
just don't do anything?
Why get involved in something if you don't have to? But
Well, also, it's up to the election commission to put people on ballots. Or if a judge or court tells them to either do it or not do it.
right.
I'm not comfortable with it being thrown on this council and being put on our shoulders to make the decision when either way you go, it sounds like we're in violation of the law. According to TCA code 751-1501.
I think that's probably the most correct statement I've heard up here. 'Cause
We are in violation of state law, but then you said that since we're a private act charter, that we're also in violation. So you're in violation either way. And I'm not comfortable as a law enforcement officer. Mr. Tommy is. You know, there's several of us up here, and that's. Do I think that this is fair? No. Do I think it should be removed? Yes. And we're gonna get to that in a few minutes. But I just don't like that's being put on this council. We are not the election commission. I'm not the election commissioner, and that's no shade thrown on anybody, Miss Amber, or anybody else, because I respect what they do. I just don't understand why it's being thrown on us in this council to make this decision when it's up to her office to place people on ballots. It's not my place.
And that would be another option, you know, now that you I could send her written response of, we had a special meeting about it and the city takes no position except that this is your job to determine. I mean, it just kind of depends what y'all want to do. I serve at your pleasure. But I would not be doing my job as an attorney licensed in Tennessee. I cannot advise a client to.
Oh, yeah, I'll rescind my motion. Is that all? That's good. Now, somebody else say something. I'm tired of talking.
Ms. Schneider, I make the motion that we give the election commission a written response saying that the city will take no side on it, and that it be up to her office to either place Ms. Miller on the ballot or not place her on the ballot. That would be my motion.
Have a motion, is there a second? Second by Mr. Lau, are there any questions on that? If not, all in favor say, we ain't got to call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
So which way we going now?
The motion now is.
Please
do-
tell Mo.
The motion now is to do
It's
nothing.
just like we never showed up tonight.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Let Amber decide.
No, a decision had to be made one way or the other, because the onus was on Kevin to, we gotta break it down.
The only way that we're not in violation of state law is that if the city take no opposition on it. One side or the other. On one side, you're in violation of state law. The other side, you're in violation of our charter, which is also state law. The only way that we're not involved in litigation for no reason at all is to just send them a letter saying that we're not doing your job for you.
Right.
And I mean that respectfully. I'm not an election commission. I don't know what they do, what the process is, and I say that out of respect, and I know Ms. Moore couldn't do my job, right? Because we're in different rooms. And so I don't want to be in the business of placing people on ballots or not placing them on ballots if I don't have to, and to keep the city out of litigation, because no one wins in that situation except for respectfully you, the other lawyers. So
Clocking
that's
some
my
hours.
motion.
And I don't disagree with that in the sense that is why we have an election commission, and this should be their decision. And that way, if they do something, which I believe would be unconstitutional, you've got the perfect remedy available to you, because it may not even become an issue if they put you on the ballot.
All right, so, everybody,
Does that require a vote?
well,
Shouldn't have to
basically
vote
what
then,
we're
right?
doing is voting to give him the authority to write that.
To
letter,
respond.
To respond to Ms. Amber.
Oh, okay.
So let me make sure, because this is important. The official motion would be to tell the election commission that after a vote, the city takes no position on who or who should not be on the ballot And it is the council's position that that is essentially your job. Which, in my opinion, I think it is. I mean, they are literally paid to be the election commissions.
Yes, sir.
And I think it does something else other than what you've talked about, takes you out of the loop. It also keeps you from going against each other. Because honestly, these are things, and I've seen this over the years in my 28-year career, y'all have a very good functioning board from the 2 years or so that I've been up here. And I hate to see you basically vote against each other on something that is a horribly drafted provision in a charter.
Thank you to the folks
So-
from 1996, Mr. Listen, public comments over with.
If we find
It's
this in
over with.
violation, would you people would be a misdemeanor or a felony for them voting against the law we got on the book, letting it slide?
violate the city charter?
Individuals, usually you get sued, the mayor and council people, if we're violating that, the charter is our law.
I thought public comment was over.
No, well, no,
Okay.
y'all.
Let's
wait a
go, we
minute.
were in the middle of our vote. I don't think we
Wait a
can
minute, y'all let him talk earlier, Chris called him up, we let him talk, so.
But I thought that period had
He
ended.
talked outside of the public comments.
Have a felony conviction, Voting Right Act is
I
very.
call for the question, Mr.
very,
Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I call for the question.
All right,
You know
we
what
got
the
a
question
motion, call for the question, motion, is there a second to call for the question to end discussion? He got his motion, there's a motion to end discussion,
A second.
all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried, now we back on the motion, we have a motion, everybody understand Chris's motion? Have a, I think Todd seconded. All right, if you would call the roll, Ms. Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mr. Golden?
No.
Mr. Lau?
Yes.
Mr. McKinney?
It's yes to send a no.
His motion
Y'all got
is
this
to
thing
send
already.
a letter from the attorney stating that we're not taking action and we have, that we're doing nothing.
Leaving it to the election commission.
Okay. So, do you understand it, Mr. Brown? So you wanna leave your motion, you wanna know? Okay, Mr. Golden?
No.
All right. Mr. Left? Mr. McKinney? Yeah.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Woods?
Take no position.
So you abstaining? All right, we got 5 yeses, 2 noes, 1 abstain, motion carried. Is there a motion we adjourn? Motion by Mr. McKinney, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Ray, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you all.